Beloved Chooks. Have you ever had beloved Chooks? When I was a snotty-nosed child, we had ducks. Their every quack was music to our ears. Ducks were a lot of fun. As they caught dead mice we threw and gobbled them down. We told everyone our ducks were more clever than their stupid chooks. But probably they were as clever as each other, because both groups ended up with their useless heads chopped off. Ducks tasted more delicious than flavourless chooks. When I was young, we were duck fanatics, never chook fanatics. But could I forever escape having chooks? About 10 years ago, I was married to a feisty female and lived with her and my 3 young sons at a beach village on the Sunshine Coast. Our home sweet home thrived as a cottage sweet cottage, overtowered by 15-metre paper-barked tea trees. Ours was a raised block of land that was originally swampland. We had created many gardens around our yard. Our gardens attracted greedy, boisterous, yet joyous multitudes of beautiful and ugly birds. Although flora and fauna excited me, I hated those feathered fiends devouring my precious backyard figs and bananas. Birds, birds, birds. But annoying me, my wife often suggested that we keep the most stupid of birds called chooks. Yes, lazy no-hopers called bloody chooks. Of course, I pretended I would build a chook house one day. I protested that a chook house would cost $100 to build. My stubborn wife pointed out a huge pile of junk timber in the bush. Of course, I said okay to using that timber on one never-to-come day. But, shock of shocks, my mother-in-law visited us for 2 weeks from not far away enough Scotland. Suddenly, I was inspired to get out of our invaded cottage and needed an excuse. Like a madman possessed, I began to create my own chook pen. My mother-in-law even said that I was hard-working. How ridiculous. All that absolute junk timber was my hammering and sawing freedom from my mother-in-law. Day and night I worked to create it, a weird monstrosity of decaying timber and rusty corrugated iron. All the angles were extremely haphazard angles on a surrealistic mockery of quaint chook houses. Amazingly, almost magically, I somehow finished that chook house on the day my mother-in-law was leaving for Scotland. When she came out to inspect my suspect creativity, she seriously shook her head and tried to say polite words. Her husband was a bricklayer who loved 90-degree angles. She probably loved too. She congratulated me for creating something other men wouldn't create. Wasn't she nice? After she left, I didn't want pesty chooks. Wisely, I said my sons could play in the chook house if they were careful of the hundreds of sharp nails pointing out of the boards. But my wife declared, "We're getting chooks. We want fresh, free-range eggs. I'll leave it up to you, Peter." Before you could say ornithorhynchus 2,000,000 times, 6 chooks and 4 large bags of lane mash were delivered. Although I hate to admit it, we were all very excited by our chooks. As we released those white hens from their boxes, they ran around, bewildered in their new home. My wife was happy, as she, my sons, and all laughed at the absurdity of the chooks. As days passed, realities of chooks set in. My wife hated the chooks, digging up her prized gardens for worms. It was a hellish task to catch them, to put them back in the chook house. Those nuisances were to be confined there for the rest of their egg-laying lives. It was my job to clean out the horrible stench of chicken poo every week. What bliss as I squelched through the pen's floor of poo in my rubber Wellington boots. Surplus eggs were sold to ladies in my art group until I calculated that we were selling the eggs for 40 cents less per dozen than they cost to produce. We were better off eating the eggs and consumed daily hotcakes like pikelets, rich in eggs. The ladies at the art group grumbled a bit about me cutting their supply of good quality cheap eggs. Carpet snakes, or humans maybe, would sometimes take our 6 eggs for the day before we checked for them. Because the non-profitable chooks were humorous with their beady little eyes and mannerisms, we were attached to them. Maybe they were like us. That New Year's Eve, we didn't suspect what would happen. We stayed up until important midnight, all happy and hoping for a jolly future. Off to bed we went, and I was contentedly sleeping next to my wife. That was until about 5 a.m, when I was shaken, almost awake. Horrific squawking was filling my ears. My wife demanded, "Peter, there's a dog killing our chooks. Save them. Here's a broom." Obedient, I ran out with the heavy broom to murder that bastard of a dog. Never have I sworn so loudly and profusely as then. It was a German shepherd with a hen in its mouth. A savage dog trapped and rushing around in a frenzy. I was crazed with anger as I whacked at the dog with the broom. Fortunately for that German shepherd, it leapt the fence and escaped. The 6 chooks lay lifeless in corners of the pen. My wife, my sons, and my neighbours were all there to see what was. And I was naked how I slept, naked for all the world to see, and quickly running up our back stairs to escape applause. At about 7 a.m, in clothes, I walked out to the pen to inspect the death and destruction caused. Hurrah! 5 chooks were alive like usual. They'd been acting dead. I loved them. Unluckily, the other chook was definitely dead, with blood-stained feathers. My over-frugal wife said we had to eat it because we couldn't waste a chook. Obedient yet stupid, I chopped off its innocent head and plucked its innocent feathers to reveal large bruises and puncture marks from the dog's teeth. I pulled out the guts and stuffed the chook with onions. That I roasted with vegetables. Hey presto, what an obnoxious meal none of us wanted to eat. Obedient me, I ate the innocent flesh with the puncture marks. No one died from this, but I never want chooks again.